TV is on. We're live. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. I'm sitting here on a piping hot, bright and sunny Thursday in the state of New Jersey, in the city of New Brunswick. And I'm joined with two Tulab al-Ilm. And I came into the studio and to the Cosina to see three Tulab Ilm studying. Azziya, what were you studying?
I was working, actually.
And they're also working. No unemployed bums. No unemployed bums in this in our world. Who's unemployed? You're employed. Here.
Oh, here, yeah.
Yeah. You want to autofocus? Let me push that aside. Boom. No, we don't have. We don't got no unemployed bums here. Yeah. Good. Stories of the Awliyah today. Are there any announcements or anything? No, I don't think so. Do we need to make any announcements? No, we're good to go. Huh? What? We're good. Well, first announcement is that summer term for Arkview. You guys should take advantage of it because Sheikh Nuh Saunders is highlighting. Sheikh Nuh Saunders is highlighting it with a tafsir class, which is very good and powerful, and you don't want to miss it. And that's part of Arkview Plus. You have two options when you study it with us online: Arkview Basic and Arkview Plus. Sheikh Nuh Saunders is highlighting the Arkview Plus. Also, Jawharat al-Tawheed with Sheikh Osama and Aqidah is continuing. So you want to take advantage of that and do that, you can do it. Okay. So those are, you go to arkview.org, okay, and you could sign up. Option 1 and option 2. Furthermore, if you have kids, we have a pilot program with Hifz. We now offer Hifz. Many people, they go and they need to find themselves a Hafiz overseas or something like that. We cut that out for you. And they don't know how to pay them and blah, blah, blah. We cut that all out for you. We do it for you ourselves. And at the same time, you could take all the adult classes, right? And we do that for everybody so that your life can be made easy, all right? And we have the Hifz program on Arkview is now buzzing. And that's how we want to spend our time. But you got to make sure to spend your time and never let it be mingled with the evil and the shar. Spend your time doing something good, but don't let it mingle with the evil and the shar, okay? Because one of the things that Shaytan loves to do is he loves to mingle the good with the bad. That's how he corrupts something. If you mingle the good with the bad enough times, you completely corrupt the good. And then you're stuck because it's good, but there's this necessary evil with it or attached evil with it. So you got to be very careful with this stuff. Okay, be very careful, very cautious, and have a strong life outside of, have a very strong family life outside of your work and social life so that can ground you. And those who don't have a strong family life, they don't get grounded. It's one of the reasons that many shuyukh, I think Abu Hassan al-Shadli would not take someone unless you had a job. Keep you out of trouble. You have a job, you have a family, chances are you're not going to get in trouble. You have too much to lose. Okay. What's tonight's schedule for Arkview? Arkview Basic. Tasawwuf. When do we do Tasawwuf? An hour before Maghrib. Okay. Let's look at the prayer time. Maghrib is at 8:30. So what does that make our course? Tasawwuf, 7:30. And today we're going to be studying Sidi Ahmed Zarruq, and he breaks down the different facets within the realm of Tasawwuf and the names that are attributed to different qualities, such as the Malamatiyya. You've heard of the Malamatiyya? You heard of the Malamatiyya? Oh, you guys are missing out. The Malamatiyya have the word lawm in there. It's rooted in the word lawm. And the Malamatiyya are people who never show their good deeds and don't hide their flaws, weaknesses, and bad deeds. That's what the Malamatiyya are. And it's permissible to a degree in a certain capacity. And Sayyid Ahmad Zarruq said it's the people of the path of Allah who are not in the field of scholarship, but they're rather regular professionals. You don't see any deen on them in the sense of anything different. He's just a regular Muslim guy. But he has his awrad, he has his path, he has everything, right? He does everything, but he never reveals it. He didn't change his beard, he didn't change his garment, he didn't change his cap. He looked like a regular Muslim guy, and that's it. Now, the Malamatiyya, sometimes they love it so much because of the ikhlas. It's like no one treats you differently. No one expects anything from you, so it's very easy to have ikhlas, but sometimes they enter into karahiyah, a discouraged state, which is when they do discourage things publicly and openly, right? Or they, and sometimes it's not like, hey, I'm becoming a malamati, so let me do something makruh. They don't do that, but they want to be free-flowing in their life and in their deen. And so they give their nafs a little bit more room, right? And that ends up becoming makruh if they do makruh. And I'm telling you, I met somebody, okay? I see that question about Arkview, UK times, and that is something we're going to deal with. We will, eventually, we have the intention to offer UK hours for all of our online classes. I see that, and we're going to take care of that, inshallah. It actually should be easier because UK hours means middle of the day. Most shuyukh aren't that busy middle of the day. But in any event, what was I saying? What was I saying? Malamatiyya. I met somebody, and this guy came with a T-shirt. I think he maybe had a very small beard or nothing at all. And he was talking, and he was a complete regular guy, right? And yet he was chit-chatting with his friends, and he said he just finished the hifd of Ali Imran, and that he did it in half the time it took him to do the hifd of Baqarah. And he would sit for a tasmiyah after a loud and boisterous sitting, like sitting down, eating, joking, laughing, like a complete guy, just a regular guy. And then he would sit down for a tasmiyah, and he can go for 2 and 3 hours of tasmiyah, reciting to his wife and his daughters and his friends. That's an example of someone who he's not, and he doesn't even know what Malamatiyya is. He's a regular guy, but it's a way of being where you don't ever try to make airs of religion. You never try to put on airs in your deen. There's no fakery. It's just he is who he is. That's it. And within the halal. And that's where it's okay, whether it's within the halal. If you start going into the makruh or skipping sunan, that's where it's a problem, right? So these people, they love this way because there's very little pressure. There's no reputation for them to have to keep up. There's no riyat possible, right? And they benefit. They benefit from that. All right, let's now read. Ali al-Muzayyin. We're reading from Al-Risala al-Qushayriyah, and we're reading the chapter on Al-A'lam min al-Zuhhad, the famous Zuhd. We're almost done with the book. We are on entry number 67, and there's only 83 entries. وهو Ali ibn Muhammad al-Muzayyin or al-Mizayyin, and he died 328 after the Hijrah, which equates to 940 of the Common Era. And he is a man of Baghdad. Okay. Min Ashab, he is the companion of Sahl ibn Abdullah al-Tustari. Okay. And he is also from the companions of Al-Junayd al-Salik. And he died in Mecca al-Mukarramah. And he had lived there. And he was a wara', which means he avoids the makruh. a taqi, the taqwa, someone of taqwa avoids the haram. Someone who has wara avoids the makruh. That's the difference. Okay. And he said from his sayings is الذنب بعد الذنب عقوبة الذنب الأول. Okay. وجزاء سيئة سيئة مثلها. Doesn't Allah say in the Quran, the punishment, the consequence of a sin is a sin like it? So how do you know if a person is being punished when they commit a sin is that they end up committing another sin? Like what? Someone steals, then lies about it. So the lying is probably worse than the original. Like Richard Nixon. What he did was not even like that bad, right? He would not have been impeached, right? And have to resign. But then he lied about it. And then he obstructed justice, right? Obstruction of justice was even worse. So this is a reaction to a wrong that was far worse than the original wrong. Well, what does that tell you? That told you lack tawfiq. Allah has not given you tawfiq in Tawbah. And He's clouded your intellect. Sins cloud intellect in our cosmology. If you want to think clearly, purify your heart from sins. Logical think, and that's why, well, look around. Let's look around and see if the promise of Allah is on display, is in demonstration. The intellect is not being used anymore. Very basic things going around. What is a woman? What? Are we kidding? What are we discussing here? The aql is gone. Why? Decades and decades of zina and sins. Now we have reached the point where we are as dumb as pagans. When you look at the old pagans, I remember being in Sunday school, and so many masajid started off like this in the 80s and the early 90s. You go into a medical, these like medical plazas, which like offices and doctors' offices and stuff, and you rent out a doctor's office. Break out the walls, put a men's section, women's section. I remember being in one of those masajid, right? And we would have to put up like sort of these walls to make the classrooms for the Sunday school. And we would sit there, and every week we would read the seerah book. It was like a workbook. And there was a sister there, subhanAllah, I can't remember her name, but she was like our first Islamic teacher, basically. And she would teach us, and she would say the pagans worshipped idols made of wood and stone. I'm like, how dumb is this, right? How stupid is this? And then they would make it and then call it their God. And you're thinking, are you serious? Like, what happened to the human beings? Why were they so dumb? But, well, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, so Islam came and fought those dummies, right? But we don't have dummies like that anymore. People are smart, right? Wait a second, fast forward a couple more decades. No, we are dumber than them. Their intellect, our intellect, collectively today, the trends is more clouded over than them. Because sociologically, you could say, listen, because there's a sociological philosophy of paganism, which is that nobody really believes these are gods except the common people. The elites establish them as a methodology, a target. This is the symbol of our tribe, right? And the rituals are a place to get the people together. And the common man just needs a ritual, needs a story, needs a myth. But the leadership, they really understand that this is just a way to keep the group in order, right? And then we could choose some tijara around it. Like the super rich, the elites, why do they care about the Super Bowl? Why do they care about the NFL? For the love of the game or the love of the business of the game, right? So the elites, they see that this is a business. We can make a business out of this. And Hajj becomes a business. And that the leadership, the true leadership, they love the gods as symbols of their tijara, symbols of their business, symbols of their work, of what keeps the tribe together and makes them a buck. And that's our society. And we're at the top of this society. And the common man and these weirdo medicine men that are the priests, they're important to feed it. Just like the players are important to feed the NFL, the coaches are important, the media is important. And at the end of the day, the most important is the owner and the advertiser. That's the relationship. And we need these people to prance around the field to get the viewers. So the crazier, the more attractive, the more interesting the player is. You're only good if there's a TV where millions could watch and advertisers will pay millions to get. That's how it works. They'd probably care less about the ball going into the end zone. Same thing with the idol. So you can actually understand what's going on, and this is one of the early sociologists when he talked about this, and he said that's the, I think it was Emil Durkheim or whatever, said that is the philosophy. That's the philosophy of the pagan culture. It makes sense, right? Why humans would behave like this. But now fast forward, okay, and now we have people at the highest offices of everything, in the highest locations of education, and they're convinced man could get pregnant, man can menstruate, and we'll look you straight in the face and say the sins have reached such a level that this intellect has become mukhammar. What's the English for mukhammar? It's not what happens to the grape? Fermented. It's fermented with filth, right? It's fermented. The brains are fermented. They don't work. Just need to be conquered, so we can take care of you.
I forgot to mention this, but even back then, people would say, how can someone be so dumb as a Muslim to follow Dajjal?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, all right.
Same thing, right? It's in the book right there. He makes a great point. It's in the book. He is right there. It says he's one-eyed.
Like, just don't follow him.
Yeah. Don't follow him.
But then, I forgot who mentioned this, but they said, today we have people that are looking at guys and they're, forsaking their own eyesight, saying, this is not a guy, this is a woman. Even though they know this guy's a man. Thank you.
Like, it's a dry run. It's a preparation. And if you repeat an action over and over, it becomes a melaka. A melaka is something that you're so good at. You've done it so many times, you do it with your eyes closed. So what is this? Part of this transgender movement is a constant repetition of denying what's in front of your own two eyes. Your own two eyes see a male, yet because of the repetition, you will say that's a female. So the whole world is doing this. So when it comes time, the concept and idea, okay, that a one-eyed Dajjal comes and tells you he's not the Dajjal. I'm your savior. Hold on, the Hadith says he's one-eyed, right in front of your face, and the guy's one-eyed. You could see kafir written on his forehead, and all of a sudden, people will follow him because they have gotten used to negating what their own two eyes see. Unreal. It's unreal. But again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he speaks of sins, he says, أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. Your uqul have stopped working because of sins. So, الذنب بعد الذنب عقوبة الذنب الأولي. The sin after the sin is the punishment. Now, you did not have remorse. You did not have admission. You did not commit sin. You did not make Tawbah. So as a result of that, Allah punishes you with what you love. You refuse to repent for this sin. You enjoy this sin. You defend it. All right, take more. The opposite. Shukr. وَلَئِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. You're thankful. Alhamdulillah, I have the opportunity of Tawbah. Allah will open you another opportunity of Tawbah. Okay. Salam, come on in. Where's Yunus?
SAT.
Ooh, very good. SAT prep. وَالْحَسَنَةُ بَعْدَ الْحَسَنَةِ ثَوَابُ الْحَسَنَةِ الْأُولَى, he says. So likewise, the opposite is the case. A good deed. If you do a good deed, and you did it truly for the sake of Allah, the sign of that is it will be followed up by another good deed. And that is that a person does good, then after he does good, he insists that he has done nothing and all the credit is due to Allah and all those who helped him. So he did that becomes a second good deed. Okay. وَسُئِلَ عَنِ التَّوْحِيدِ فَقَالَ. He was asked about Tawheed, so he said, أن تعلم أن أوصافه تعالى بائنة لأوصاف خلقه. Okay. باينهم بصفاته قدما كما باينوه بصفاته حدثا. So to know that the creation is the created manifestation of his eternal attributes. The word hadath or hadith refers to that which has come into existence. And the word qadim is that which has not come into existence, in fact, infinite and eternal. These are two important words, hadith and qadim. And the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is qadim. Everything that will happen, he has been willed, and it is in his knowledge. And it will and when you see it happen, it's not at this moment or any time recently that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala thought of it and created it. No, not at all. Rather, he willed that it manifest at this time. As the Mu'tazila and some of those used to say that, like, Allah is constantly creating something new. So it's like as if like an artist thinking of something new idea. No. Rather, Allah has already willed that. And he willed that it manifest at this hour, at this time. Willed that that this day manifest right now. Not that earlier he thought of it and then created it. No. So that's not the case at all. And that's why the ulama say, okay, the saying for that is, Umurun yubdiha wa la yabtadiha. And let me read it to you. Let me read it to you. Okay. It's from Ibn al-Jawzi. Gives this story. Let's read. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. This is from قال رجل إلى ابن الجوزي. Okay. وهو على كرسيه للوعظ يقرأ تفسير قوله تعالى كل يوم هو في شأن. No, this is Ibn al-Juzay. Should be Ibn al-Juzay. كل يوم هو في شأن. Every day he is in an affair, meaning doing something. What does it mean? ووقف على رأسه فقال يا هذا ما يفعل ربك الآن. He says, oh you, what does your Lord do right now? What's he doing right now? فسكت وبات مهموما. He remained silent and became very pensive for the rest of the night, thinking of the answer to this question. What is Allah doing now? Okay. فرأى المصطفى صلى الله عليه وسلم. He saw the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. فذكر له ذلك وسأله. He mentioned this to the Prophet and he asked him. فقال له إن السائل لك الخضر. The questioner who asked you this is al-Khidr. Okay. وإنه سيعود, and he is going to come back. Tell him شؤون يبديها ولا يبتديها. Matters that he manifests and does not initiate. Because all matters are already willed and in his knowledge, but they are not manifested. So كل يوم هو في شأن. What is Allah doing? Manifesting what he has already known and willed. أزلا قديما. يخفض أقواما ويرفع آخرين. He lowers some people and elevates others. فأصبح مسرورا. He woke up very happy. فأتاه وأعاد عليه السؤال. When he went to the class again, the man came and he asked the same question, so he answered him. And the man said, صلي على من علمك. Recite salawat on the one who taught you. Meaning he knew that this was the answer given from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he left. وَالْمُرَادْ بِالشُّؤُونَ. And this is Allah's inayah, Allah's care for the Ummah, that he has people asking questions so that the scholars could answer them. الأحوال وقول يبديها أي يظهرها. What does it mean يبديها? He manifests it. So All of us have existed qadiman, pre-eternally, in Allah's knowledge. But we didn't manifest until you were born in a physical form. Okay? وَلَا يَبْتَدِيهَا أي he does not think of it anew. So it's that he didn't know it, now he knows it. He didn't will it, now he wills it. No, his knowledge and his will are azali. They're qadim. Okay? Pre-eternal. That is the meaning of كُلَّ يَوْمٍ هُوَ فِي شَأْنٍ. Let's see. Okay. Let's see here. What was that link that someone put up there? Okay. What's that? Right. Bismillah. Mashallah. So it's very important for you guys to know this. Umurun. When I had heard it, I was umurun yubdiha wa yabtadiha, but it's the exact statement in this narration of it is شؤون يبديها ولا يبتديها. شؤون umurun, same thing. Matters that he manifests but is not initiating. They're in his knowledge and will azalan, meaning pre-eternally. Because people do bring up this question. You say, okay, your God is transcendent, beyond time? Yes. Okay, then what about the nature of creation? Could you please, the nature of creation. So 2030 hasn't existed yet. He's going to create it, right? So he's going to take action. And we say, no, it exists in his knowledge and his will already. Forever it has. But it has not, he willed that it physically manifests at a certain time. And that's the difference. وقال من لم يستغني بالله تعالى أحوجه الله تعالى إلى الخلق. If you do not suffice yourself and satisfy yourself with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah ta'ala will make you need those people. And one of the reasons, one of the meanings behind this, what does it mean to suffice yourself? Suffice yourself with the halal. To suffice yourself with the remembrance of Allah over intoxicants. To suffice yourself with the food that is halal over the haram. The company that is halal over the haram. The listening that is halal rather than the haram. So you don't need them. So that is the meaning of sufficing yourself with Allah. Is suffice yourself with what He permitted and avoid what He forbade. And then also it has to do with emotionally speaking. When a person is down, what do? Turn on a TV. People go to bars. People smoke. People use these things to assuage their pains. But what about the remembrance of Allah? What about dua? What about good deeds? Because you do good deeds towards others regarding what you need. I'm down, go make someone else happy. That's the real medicine. You're down, I'm down. Why am I down? I got these issues. Go make someone else happy, solve their problem. You basically put what you need up in the sky, and it's going to come back and rain upon you. Right? That's why some places are always raining. Why? It's because they have lakes that always put up evaporation, right? And then that water flies up around the sky, okay? And it rains wherever it needs to rain. The cloud moves. That doesn't rain right above the lake. The water comes up from the lake. The cloud moves and rains somewhere else. So you have a beautiful, lush, green country, right? So likewise, that's what we need to do. You have an issue. What is your issue? I need someone to forgive me. Go forgive somebody yourself. I need some money. Go give money to someone else, right? Whatever little you have may be a big deal for somebody else. Your junk is someone else's treasure. That's why people have garage sales and they sell junk and it gets sold because for somebody else it means something. A bunch of old cards. Well, you're going to get a weirdo who collects cards, right? There are still people who are, he got a weird hobby. What can you say? Right? My junk to him is a treasure. And isn't that the same for everybody? There are people who have purchased massive libraries for dirt cheap because the person inherited the library. Has no clue what it is. Oh, I just inherited this library from my dad. And my dad had inherited it from our grandpa, right, who cared about these books. My dad didn't know what to do with them. Then he died, and now I got it. I need to unload this junk. And then you got books, right, that people are buying up. Okay, people are always buying these manuscripts, and you see people like with the I got the original Moby Dick. Someone cares about that. And then you got someone who doesn't even know anything about it, who ends up like not checking the prices and what he could have made for it. Just get rid of it. I need the space, right? That's how things happen. Believe it or not, one of the oldest masahif, and this is a sign of why our ummahs went down. One of the oldest masahif was gifted by an Ottoman Sultan whose head need to be checked. He gifted it to the German, one of the German, before they were Germany, like Prussia or whatever, right? He gifted it to him, right? Why would you gift your oldest artifact to another king who's not even a Muslim? Well, he did. Because the Ottomans, overall, they were great protectors of the Sunnah, of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. But that doesn't mean that they don't have some dopes. That's why Warren Buffett said, make your business easy, because one day it's going to be run by an idiot. It's going to happen. It's eventually going to happen that your business one day, the CEO will, somehow an idiot will come up in the ranks and end up as CEO, right? So he said, make your business model really simple. Otherwise it's going to fail. So then after the World War, it was mandated, part of the deal, the peace treaty, that book be moved to some kind of museum. It ended up in a museum, it ended up sold, and it ended up in someone's home who didn't care about it. Right? And then a bookseller who was a Christian Arab, he's like, I got to get my hands on this, a book collector, and he purchased that Mushaf. Luckily, he took care of it. It was a she. She took care of it. Right? But it went from hand to hand to hand to hand, all because people did not have the same value for it, right? So you don't never know that what you possess may be of great value to somebody else. And that's how people can help one another. And if you keep doing that over and over and over and over in life, you find yourself, there's never a dry patch. The state of New Jersey, because we have the ocean next to us, we never have a drought. When was the last time New Jersey ever had a drought? I don't think coastal cities, they don't get droughts. There's enough, especially the East Coast, because the wind is moving east. West Coast gets droughts because the wind is going away from the water, right? Or away from the land towards the water. So we get this easterly wind all the time. And as a result, it rains every few days, right? So that's the concept, that if you want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help you, right, help others, okay? And depressed people, I remember our executive director here, Sami Kadovic, was talking about volunteers. And he said, we need volunteers, but don't come and say, I need volunteer hours. If you have them, I'll give them to you, but change your intention. He said, because if you're volunteering is just for the sake of the hours, right, you don't get the great benefit of it. You have to willingly try to improve somebody else, okay? And it's actually going to make most depressed people are selfish. They don't help others. It's one of the best ways to go around and remove your sadness and bring about happiness is to go spread it. Let your lake evaporate into the air. Is the lake losing anything? Right? It's going to evaporate. Eventually the rain's going to come back to it. So that's the meaning. Man lam yastaghni billah, okay, ahwajahu Allah ila al-khalq. Al-istighna billah, sufficing yourself with Allah, is in actions and is in even feelings too and emotions. Next, wali of Allah is Ahmad ibn Masruq. Okay. وهو Abu al-Abbas Ahmad ibn Muhammad ibn Masruq. He also lived and died at the same time. من أهل طوس. He was from the Persian city of طوس. سكن بغداد, but then he moved to Baghdad. وصاحب الحارث المحاسبي والسري السقطي. Kept their company. And he died in Baghdad. So the previous one, Ali al-Muzayyin or al-Muzayyin, was from Ahl al-Hijaz, or joined Ahl al-Hijaz, and Ahmad al-Masruq is Ahl al-Iraq. وقال من راقب الله تعالى في خطرات قلبه عصمه الله تعالى في حركات جوارحه. If you monitor Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the depth of your heart, meaning your thoughts and what you're daydreaming about, then Allah ta'ala will protect your limbs. Because if a person thinks enough about something, by necessity, like magnetism, you must eventually speak about it or act upon it. It's impossible. It's impossible to be thinking, let's say, about food, constantly thinking about food, except that you will eventually eat. It's possible to be thinking about how much you hate somebody and you hate them in your heart and you keep dwelling upon that, except one day you're going to say something bad to them or you're going to frown at them. It must be that way. This is the nature of life. It's impossible that you're going to love something, except that someday you're going to act towards it. So he's saying, if you watch Allah Ta'ala in your heart, meaning watch out for your feelings, watch out for your sentiments, what you're thinking about, do muraqabah there first, then it must be that Allah Ta'ala will protect you, your actions. Because you protected the inside, then Allah will protect your outside. Okay. وقال تعظيم حرمات المؤمنين من تعظيم حرمات الله. To take very seriously, make a big deal about the sanctity of the believers is from the caution with the sanctity of Allah. Why? Because if you are monitoring and if you are giving respect and honoring somebody, it's by honoring their possessions too, right? If you come into someone's house and you put your feet on the table and you spit or blow your nose onto the rug, but then you're really nice to the owner, haven't you disrespected the owner? How? No, I didn't do anything to you. I didn't spit on you. I just spit on your rug. Oh, my stuff represents me. What you do to my stuff, it reflects what you think about me. So you come and disrespect my home like this, and you spit on my rug, and you blow your nose on my tablecloth, you're disrespecting me. So likewise, what is the most of the creation of Allah Ta'ala that He is concerned of? The mu'mineen. Right? That is Allah's possession on the earth. That is the most valuable possession. Yes, it's His possession. He owns us. He made us. We're His creation, even more than a possession, because a possession can be someone else's creation that you purchased. But a creation has a direct link. So that's why to say we're His creation is stronger than to say we're His possession. So we're His creators. So you disrespect somebody, you dishonor somebody, you drag them through the dirt, you're not respecting the Creator. وبه يصل العبد إلى محل حقيقة التقوى. Be very careful how you treat people, you arrive at taqwa. Okay. وقال, he also said, شجرة المعرفة تسقى بماء الفكر. The tree of knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watered or is fed, nourished by the water of contemplation. So what do we contemplate? We contemplate the patterns of creation. When people say fikr, what are they doing fikr of? The patterns of creation, right? And when you think about something, when you hear something, don't just take it at face value. Just think very deeply about this. For example, listen to this. I said this yesterday. You ever think of what is the very first human relationship between humans that Allah created? Where? It was in Jannah, of course. But what were they doing? For example, did Allah create... We know Adam existed, then Hawa existed. But when was the first time they met? Was it in Salah? They were laying down in the bed. Like, we got to think about that. It could have been in Salah. It could have been in eating. It could have been walking. It could have been that they were created separately and they discovered one another. It could have been so many different things. Yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the first creation of human relationship, and I thought about this teaching the high schoolers mu'amalat, right? Interactions. The very first human interaction was a husband and wife laying in a bed. And think about, well, why that? It's because it's an ishara, it's a hint, it's pointing. Your progeny, your existence of your species starts from here. Think about that. The existence of your species starts from the bed, from a husband and wife in a bed. Screw that up and you will have no human existence after that, right? Husband and how are they husband and wife? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator of Hawa. He married her to Adam, alayhi salam. Okay? So that's contemplation. It's thinking about very deeply about every detail that's given. And he said, this is what nourishes ma'rifah. And this is something that Sidi Ahmad Zarruq is going to talk about. What is the difference between the arif and the zahid and these other terms that we use? The arif billah is specifically focuses upon the concepts of knowing the patterns of Allah's creation. How Allah Ta'ala interacts with the creation. In other words, how He brings things about in the creation. These patterns. For example, one of the awliya was contemplating about water. When Allah says we created from everything living, from water, everything alive. Everything living is made of water. Then he went contemplating water. He says that water, it's clear. That means it has no biases. It's like not like white, like milk, or red, like let's say different types of grape juice or something like that. It's clear. It will take any form you put it in, unlike a solid, which won't. It will evaporate, okay? It gives from itself, always. It evaporates. It's like giving from itself. It's like fana, finishing its ego, finishing itself. It always goes down. Like, unlike fire, always goes up. Wind goes side to side. Not everything goes down. Certain things go up, right? Heat goes up. But water always goes down. You pour water, always goes down. Fire goes up, wind goes side to side. So he said, these are the qualities. If Allah made us from these, He wants us to have the qualities of water. And then he went on a treatise, take on the qualities of water, right? That you take any form. Well, wherever Allah puts you, we can adapt. If there's a situation where I'm a follower, I could be a follower. If there's a situation where I'm a leader, I could be a leader. There's a situation where I'm a supporter, I can be a supporter. There's a situation I have to be a servant, I could be a servant. If I need to be brave, I can be brave. Wherever Allah puts you. And in any situation, always go down, be humble, and give of yourself. Give of yourself until you disappear. But you never really disappear because you will evaporate up into the sky and you'll reign somewhere else, right? So amazing. The study of water. Now we know that there's a Japanese scientist who made one of the most amazing studies you ever see, which is the study of the molecule shapes of water. And he called this, what did he call it? Messages, I think messages of water or messages from water or something like that. And he basically said that the sounds around water consciousness, the sounds around water, not just the sounds, the feelings around water will alter the chemical makeup or the molecule shape. The very shape of the molecule of water, it alters by the sound that it is around it. Not only the sound, the mere sentiments. So put a glass of water and start having bad thoughts, bad feelings. The water changes. Put a water, okay, and think good thoughts. Changes. Becomes beautiful. And this one becomes ugly, right? He then said, what if, let's take it another step further. You just wrote the word. Does not, we know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that we're protected by his words, right? Just the word itself. Now, this water doesn't know what the word means, but you do. And when you write it, you're transmitting a feeling. Write the words. You took rice, put 2 containers of rice. His rice is mostly water. And he then wrote bad words on one, good words on the other. Put them right next to each other in the same fridge, same temperature, same location. One rotted way earlier than the other. I mean, this stuff is amazing. So that's why this is the meaning when the Shaykh is saying here that your knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is nourished by the water of contemplation. Contemplation of what? Of the creation. Contemplation of his attributes too. The attributes. There was one sinner who died. Grave sinner who died. Yet in the dream that we were seen in, I think Shafii narrates this. He was seen in paradise. So he was asked in the dream, how you made it to paradise with all your sins. He said, I arrived at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and I saw a grave punishment waiting for me. So I called out, I thought about the attributes of Allah. And I called out, oh Allah, show the creation that your mercy is greater than my sins. And by that I was forgiven. SubhanAllah. Ajib. Different versions of that story. Shajaratul ghaflati tusqa bima al-jahl. Now let's look at the opposite. Heedlessness. This tree of heedlessness. The rotten bush, the thorny rotten bush of heedlessness is nourished by the water of ignorance. That's why I'm telling you, the way for us Muslims to live, it doesn't have to be that you go to an institution and you study for 4 or 5 years. That's wonderful if you can. Okay? If you could do that. It's wonderful if you could do that. However, what's more important is mulazama. Mulazama is constancy. Non-stop. Non-stop. Mulazama is non-stop you're studying, non-stop you're reading, a dars a week. And here's a habit, a good habit to have. You put a book on your nightstand or on your pillow, and every night just read for a minute. That's it, 1 page. Challenge. Who cannot read for 1 page? Anything can, right? Read for 1 minute. But the truth is that if you keep doing that, right, you're not going to, eventually going to read for a bit more. But just read for a minute. Problem is today people don't actually read a lot of books. And that's something we have to fight. Because we are living in a digital age. There's no trying to get away from this, right? Embrace it. It's a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But put it in its right place. See, that's the good attitude. You know, when people come with technology and they come that we have to fight this evil, which is technology. What you've actually done is, as right as you may be, as correct as you may be, you've guaranteed loss. Because human being is not a natural feeling to be in conflict all the time. It's exhausting, right? It's the human being is not made for this. It's stressful. So why don't we just embrace what Allah created, but put it in its right place, right? Let's take all these apps, all these things. We could probably make use of, but let's put it in the right place. Like, what is enough? What is enough tweeting? Right? What is enough scrolling? Why don't we just set a number? Just set a number. Why? Because, like, what is the right price of a latte? What is the right price of a candle? Who the heck knows? But just go around and ask, right? Ask. Go around and ask. Because it's a number that someone pulled out of a bat, out of thin air. And then enough people, it stuck, right? It just stuck. Like, do you ever think of mattresses? How much is a mattress? A queen size mattress. How much? Couple $100, right? At least. Sometimes they go to 700. Sometimes they could be like, I think 350 is probably a good deal for a queen size mattress. Yeah. 350. There's no way it takes that much money to produce it, or close. When you look at the content of what's there. Look at the content of the mattress. There's no way that they think is costing $85 to produce. But someone pulled the number out of thin air, and all the mattress companies went around that area. And now, in all of our minds, that's the value of a mattress. But it's a number out of thin air. But point being is that we got to go around, ask around when we use technology and see what is enough? What is sufficient? Right? And that's the problem with those things. Like, we have an idea of what is sufficient sugar for the day because people always talk about it. But how many minutes is enough on social media? Well, of course, everyone's different, right? The student, the child, the doctor, the scholar, the journalist, everyone's going to be different. So an athlete needs to exercise far more than a child. Someone with diabetes has to eat far less sugar than an athlete, right? Likewise, a journalist, you expect him to need to use social media a lot more than, let's say, a surgeon. So everyone's going to be different. But for your class, for your physical situation, we know how much sugar you can be eating, how much exercise you should be doing. Because we talk about it all the time. But with social media, how much is enough for a student? How much is enough for a child? How much is enough for a scholar? How much is enough for a journalist? We need a number, right? And that's how we could embrace it as a ni'mah. Allah gave us this ability to take knowledge and to just like talking. I can curse and I can say good words, right? Likewise, on social media, I could say something good, I could say something bad. I could waste time. Imam Malik said, that he was asked about a man, he said he's a wonderful man, but he talks the talk of a month in a single day. He talks too much, right? So Allah gave him the gift of a tongue, but he overuses it. So, okay, well, what's enough talking? You know that we have parameters for these. The parameters are judged by the people. That's what urf is, custom. If you go to a dinner event, someone invites you for dinner, stay 3 hours. Right? That's what it is. If someone invites you for dinner at 6, you leave before 9. You don't leave at 8. That's too short. You leave at 9. You left 30, 40 minutes before dinner, chit-chat, and all the other people coming. You sit for dinner for about an hour at the table. Okay? And then you sit for dessert for another 30, 40 minutes. And then you chit-chat a little bit at the door and you leave. That is how does that happen? Urf, right? How do I make friends? It's formulaic. Invite 2, 3, 4 people to dinner. You sit for 3 hours. Guess what? You keep doing that, so start inviting you. All of a sudden, you're in a network of invitations. All right, what about you invite someone for tea and cookies and dessert? That's the second type of invitation. That's the startup. You don't, right? Sometimes you don't know somebody. I don't really know them, so you don't invite them for dinner. You'd invite them for tea. That's a 90-minute sit down, right? It's 90 minutes. It should never be more than 90 minutes. The tea comes out, the cookies, the dessert. But you need to, okay, what about the number of people? 4 is a great number of people. 1 is the weirdest thing, right? You invite, who did you invite? One. I remember going to some people's homes, right? And we're the only ones there. So I got to look at your face and talk the whole time and listen. It's too much. I'm not happy here. I'm stressed, right? It is the weirdest thing. 3 is also weird because there's someone being left out. 4 is the right number. If there's 4, sometimes you could take a break, right? You could not talk and just watch them talk. Or you could talk to one person, not talk to the other. Then you hit 5, acceptable. 6, 7, oh, that's too much now, right? I went to an iftar one time, there's like 300 people there, right? Like, this feels like a conference. I'm in a conference here, right? It's like mass production, right? Factory. Too many people. So urf has all these things, and the better attitude to something is to say, it exists, there's no avoiding it, what do we do with it?
What if the urf is excessive, like average teenager spends 5 hours on Netflix or something?
Okay. What if the urf is excessive? The urf is not the average. The urf is what the righteous people deem to be good. Okay. The urf is what the pious, righteous people deem to be acceptable. That's the urf. Like, what's the urf on shoes? at what the order for us. We look at what are the righteous people. How many shoes do they got? We're not going to go look at Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal and Junayd al-Salik. No, orf, you don't do that. Orf, you look at today. You know, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal had one room. He lived in a house with one room. When a Shafii came, they put up a curtain. Right? So we're not matching them. That's them. For us, what is acceptable? How many sneakers? How many shoes? There is going to come a point where if I put out a number, you would maybe raise your eyebrows, but you won't say anything. Then if I say another number, we're all gonna laugh at it, right? If I say a guy has 6 pairs of shoes, you may not say. I don't think you'd say anything, right? Because one shoe for weddings, one shoes for every day, one pair of sandals, one pair of running sneakers, and then 2 of the old shoes. It's acceptable number, right? But if I told you a guy has 16 shoes, you start to say, it's a bit too much. How about a guy has 60 shoes because he's a collector? No, this is right. You got to throw that out there. That's you're way out in left field, wasting your time and your money and your space, and something's wrong with you, right? So that's what the concept of urf. Yeah.
What about the amount one spends on an item?
Yeah.
When it comes to urf, your social status. So, for example, I won't mention who it was. Someone recently close to me got a watch that was rather expensive. And I saw the watch. I mean, it's a nice watch, but I would never pay that much for that watch.
Yeah.
But they say within that circle of watch
Of professionals.
or whatever, or professionals in those spaces, that's what they wear.
Let me ask you something about watches. Is it treated as an investment too?
Well,
Does it lose value, gain value?
Well, they justify the expenditure and say that it's not going to decrease in value. To justify
Do they plan to sell it back?
No, they probably don't, but they use that to justify their initial purchase.
But how could a watch not lose value if you wear it? Right?
Well, because
Wear and tear, dusts.
Well, no, because it's like cars, basically. The idea is that there's still going to be an understanding that there's wear and tear, but there's a limited number of that.
Okay. Because the super luxury cars don't lose value. Like Porsches do not lose value, right? People will buy a used Porsche or a Lamborghini at a very high price too. So I think the masajid are great examples, are great resources for this. Because if you go to 5 masajid in your local area, right, without realizing, what are you seeing? You're seeing the cars that people own. And you pretty much, after a while, you know who owns which cars, right? And you know what is out of place. If you roll up to MBIC in a McLaren, right, you're gonna know that you're way off. If you show up in a Mercedes, one of those big hoopties, what is it, the E-Class or something, the Marleybone, what is it? What's that big hoopty Mercedes? Looks like the mafiosos. No, it's like no, not the G-Wagon, Maybach, right?
Oh, the Maybach.
It's acceptable, right? All right, you're a very successful businessman or a doctor. We see 1 or 2 of those, right? But so I think the masajid are a great place to offer for us to see what is a reasonable expenditure, what do the rich have, what do the poor drive, and what's in the middle, all right? And that becomes our urf. Our urf, reasonable, is not relative to my income. So if I make 50 million a month, you think that doesn't exist? It exists. The earning of 50 million a month as a salary. So if I earn 50 million a month and I buy a $2 million car, I don't know if such a thing exists, right? What did I lose? Nothing, right? But that's not how we judge excess. Excess is judged around the community, right? Relative to the community, not relative to what I'm losing. Yeah.
So if someone follows the urf of, say, the masajid, and they do purchase something that's in that wheelhouse, and someone accuses them being excessive, then they're wrong in accusing them of being excessive, is what you're saying. Because if they're following the urf of the community, then that's perfectly acceptable, even if it's beyond the means of most people there.
Yeah. If the righteous people, then you can point around and say, hey, other righteous people have this, right? There are other righteous people who are better than me, and they own bigger homes than me, right? Now, here's where a good example of a bad sunnah has been established, where you are the first person, right? Where you become the first person And now all the rich have to level up, right? Let's say in the world of, let's say, businessmen, and there's what, maybe 6 multi-million-dollar businessmen in the general area, and they all live a certain way. Then you go and you get a McLaren and a private jet and a chopper, right? Now, human nature, good or bad, righteous or not, they're going to say, hold on, if he did it, right, I'm going to do it, right? It's like Phil Knight when he gave Jordan a cut of the shoes. He gave Jordan a percentage. All the other CEOs were like, what the heck are you doing, man? Now we got to give it out. When they do go to arbitration and go to court or whatever, or just negotiate, you set the bar so high. So there is a concept of a bad sunnah. And I'll tell you where we have an actual problem. We have an actual problem in weddings and funerals. That's where even the righteous, it needs to be fixed. And it's rare to go to a wedding where you could say, hey, this amount of expenditure, what's going on here, is actually doable and good. Other than that, everyone else has weddings where a lot of munkar happens. All of a sudden, your righteousness has gone out the window for some reason. He's a great guy, but his daughter's wedding is out of control. His son's wedding is like, where am I? Am I at the right wedding? All the munkar is there, and the expenditure is ridiculous. So we need to fix that. We also need to fix funerals. It is makruh for the women to attend the burial. You can go to the graveyard, but to be around the grave as the burial is taking place, it is makruh. The Prophet forbade it. And when one woman came and disobeyed that, he didn't say anything because she was from the family. So even Malik said, if it's of the family, the Prophet, we don't say anything. But it's makruh. The Prophet did not want this to happen. Okay. One of the reasons, very simply, is that it becomes really like jammed. The bodies are touching each other. Everyone's trying to look, right? And it becomes something where the correct way to do it is that you can come to the graveyard, wait until the burial is done in obedience to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. After the body, it's a grave now, not a burial, then you can come and visit. Once the traffic has decreased a little bit. There's no value in just witnessing the burial. There's no value in it. You're not missing out on anything. And if you are missing out on anything, it's in obedience to the Prophet. At Ramadan, we're missing out on food, right? We're missing out on Hajj. I'm missing out on 15 grand and 3 weeks of work, right? Because you're going to go Hajj for 2 weeks and get sick for 1 week. So there's sacrifices. Obey the Prophet, peace be upon him. We don't have this. I'm telling you, you go to funerals these days, and I remember second time one of the first times I saw this happen, I was like, oh shoot, this is not good. Now everyone does it in funerals, in burials. Everyone's attending, and it's jammed, and you're sitting there lowering your gaze at a funeral in a place where it's supposed to actually be a place of remembrance of death. Now it's not a remembrance of death, it's a distraction, and you're jammed up. So that's something that needs to be rectified. If we don't rectify these things, then Allah will send us a group, a sect, a crazy group of people who will do the job. And we're not going to like it. And I said 2 days earlier, some munkarat were happening in the world of da'wah, but the du'at and the imams are very nice people, and they give husn al-dhan, and they don't want to embarrass anyone, and they don't want a conflict. And so it passed, and nobody said anything. And then Allah Ta'ala created somebody who's going to come and not care about all these adab and all these fine-tuning, let's see exactly what he said. Let's put it in context. Let's be nice about it. All that's out the window. Pouring gas. Okay? Gas on the whole thing. Light it on fire and laugh. Okay? Now Allah sent you the Joker to fix you. Okay? It's the truth. Right? If you don't fix yourself, ولا تأمرن بالمعروف ولا تنهون عن المنكر أو لا يسلطن الله عليكم, okay, ولا يستجيب دعاء خياركم. Okay, you fix things. If you don't, then your dua is canceled now, and Allah will send someone to fix it. Okay, or Allah will send an oppressor over you, and your dua is not answered. And that's why we're seeing it right? That nobody could stop these things. Let's take the Sufiyyah. One thing I said yesterday is that they always say about the Sufiyyah, the Ash'aris with their Greek. I said, what Greek are you talking about? There's just general, any rational logic is used. There's nothing Greek about this, right? It's a lie. Worshipping graves. One's worshiping no graves, right? But bid'ah, yeah, bid'ah were there. Innovations definitely were there. But the Sufiyyah amongst themselves, being polite, being nice, just like Ahmad Zarruq said. See, Ahmad Zarruq, and he's going to say it in the Qawa'id at Tasawwuf. When they all come together, they have one flaw. They don't fix each other. They're polite. They're nice. They're merciful. They're kind. They give the benefit of the doubt. They hope in the future, things will get better. They don't correct each other. They don't set each other right. Okay? Sidi Ahmad Zarruq. Well, he was right. Okay, you're not going to set yourself right? Then Allah Ta'ala created a group of rabid, wild people who lighten the whole thing on fire. Okay? Coming out of Najd. Of course, they're going to be upset. They say rabid and wild. But you did shoot up Hujjaj. Shot up people going to make Hajj because they're singing the Burda. You're not rabid and wild? So they come in with no mercy at all. So that's why fix yourselves before Allah sends you someone who has no mercy and does not discriminate between the innocent and the guilty and does not treat you the way you deserve to be treated with rahmah. A guy's 95% good and he makes a couple mistakes in his life. No, cancel the whole guy. All right? Take the 5% mistakes and label him with it. Horrendous what we're seeing happening in the da'wah. I feel bad for them. I'm not saying this is justified, but I'm explaining the phenomenon of what happens in the creation. This is what happens in Allah's creation. And it's happened over and over and over and over. Okay? Fix the wrongs, and if not, then Allah Ta'ala will bring about for you something that will bring you to your knees. Doesn't discriminate, doesn't treat you nicely, and it'll fix the job and do more damage too. So that's why we got to correct ourselves. So he's saying here that heedlessness is by ghafla. And ghafla is going long stretches without studying. Imam al-Haddad, he said that the ulama in our times, they have to stop caving themselves up and writing commentaries upon commentaries upon commentaries, and they need to go out and teach the basics to the people. You have to go out there. You can't wait till the people to come to you because they're in heedlessness. Okay? And how are you going to go out there? You got to go out there in a way that doesn't harm yourself, because you could harm yourself. Many imams of the past, they were some great strength overcame them, and they went into places of munkar and gave da'wah there. How do we explain that? Like, they went into bars, shisha joints, and they went, and one is narrated that he took the coal of the shisha and he threw it on the belly dancer, right? And she got shocked, and he said, "You don't like this? The Jahannam that you're going towards is worse." She made Tawbah, right? So how do we explain that? We explain that he was overtaken by a had. It's not sunnah. It's makruh, it's haram to go to those places, even for da'wah. But we say he was overtaken by a state. Okay. So we have to go out to the people in a way that doesn't harm you. Okay. Can't harm yourself. Imam al-Haddad said there's no zuhd about your own akhirah. You can say, I'll sacrifice my life to save somebody else. I'll sacrifice my wealth to give wealth to somebody else. You can't say, I'll sacrifice my akhirah to save somebody else. That would be nifaq, hypocrisy, he said. We have to be a people that are in constant state of study, constantly with the ulama, every day. Some exposure to ulama. I know people whose Instagram is all ilm. He could do it. All ilm. شجرة التوبة تسقى بماء الندامة. The tree of repentance is nourished by the water of regret. شجرة المحبة تسقى بماء الاتفاق والموافقة. The tree of love, what is it nourished by? Agreement. Being in agreement. People who are contrarians will not have a lot of friends. Show me a contrarian who has a lot of friends. Being in agreement, if you want to make have a good relation with somebody, be in agreement with them. Talk about only what you agree upon. Leave off the disagreements. And this is one of the diseases that has an epidemic that has ravaged certain segments of the Islamic community is argumentation. Like non-stop argumentation. And when argumentation, you know when it has not just boiled over, vomited over, is when name calling. It's not, this thing hasn't festered, it's blown up. Threatening people, like physically threatening them, right? Name calling is one thing. Now physical threats, this thing has boiled over. Something's wrong, right? Something is terribly, terribly wrong with the dawah scene in some segments. Not masajid are fine. I find masajid to be peaceful. People tend to want to get along in the masajid, right? I tend to find masajid to be people who are very peaceful. Even you go to a masjid where they're a little bit different than you, but it's like we're fighting everywhere. There's fights everywhere. There's tension everywhere. There shouldn't be tension here. I tend to find masajid to be very peaceful, but some of these virtual spaces, it's metastasized. I'm telling you, it's metastasized. There's no curing this thing. It's metastasized. That's my diagnosis. It's an out of control. It's the cancer is never going back, right? So, Allahu A'lam. And that doesn't fall into what the Prophet ﷺ said, is that the one who said people are destroyed. No, he's the one who destroyed them. Imam Nawawi, he says that if you're diagnosing a thing as a hopeless case, that is not what it means. That's not what it means. It means when you wish for them to be, destroyed. And you don't believe that rahmah of Allah exists for them. That's what it means. Okay, but when you're diagnosing something as a hopeless case or like a metastasized cancer, is anyone going to disagree? No one's going to disagree that Twitter, the Muslim Twitter world and all that, it's metastasized. It's a cancer that is out of control. If the Zionists had a plan to destroy the Muslims, it wouldn't be as good as this, as what's happening. It would not be. They wouldn't be able to plan something better than this. This is beyond their wildest dreams. Person comes into Islam, I worry about them. Because they're going to come in and there'll be bullets flying. Hold on, I thought this was the abode of peace. Arrows, logs being thrown at either, chairs being thrown. It's the malice at the palace is happening here, right? You all know about that?
Didn't the Prophet say that where he made dua and that was the one dua that was not answered? That there would be fitting between
Yeah.
Ummah.
That's it.
So it's actually an evidence.
It's a proof. Yeah, it's a proof. And you all saw the malice at the palace, right?
Yeah,
You know about that. Huh?
Ron Artest.
Yeah. Ron Artest.
I know. Did he change his name to like?
Meta World Peace.
That's the craziest name change. Like, what is that?
Guy's miskeen, man. Guy's miskeen.
World peace.
وقال متى طمعت في المعرفة ولم تحكم قبلها مدارج الإرادة فأنت في جهل. If you want ma'rifah, enlightenment and knowledge of Allah Ta'ala, but you can't control your lower desires, then you are in a state of ignorance. Controlling the lower desires must come before enlightenment and ma'rifah. Okay. ومتى طلبت الإرادة قبل تصحيح مقام التوبة فأنت في غفلة عما تطلب. You can't control your base desires. Okay. Cannot control your base desires unless you have first mastered Tawbah. Because you will control your base desires, but it's not going to be like that. It's going to be a back and forth and a back and forth. Made Tawbah, fell into sins. Made Tawbah, fell into sins. So on and so forth. All right. It's 2:19 right now. We will take a short break. Why don't you come up and talk about fictional frontiers? what's going on. Why don't you talk about some of the stuff you're fighting against while I take a quick breather, and then we'll be back for a Q&A.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. This was not planned, so again, I'll extemporaneously answer any questions you might have about the Fictional Frontiers Initiative. We've talked about this a couple times in the past, but basically our initiative is focusing on storytelling from or inspired by the Muslim world. And what that means is that we are trying to create affirmative storytelling that's not a pushback to anything or response to anything that's being created right now, because we're confident that the stories that we have to tell, which are not only based on the ethos of the Muslim perspective on things, but also based on a rich legacy and history of the best of noble character, not only from the times of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but also those who came after him. We just need to share those stories. We need to share those narratives. And by sharing those, we ultimately will be able to bring people to understand a completely different paradigm than what they're accustomed to grappling with in the short term and in the long term right now. So rather than say, okay, this is counter-programming to what we're seeing, I feel like that's a watering down of what our message is all about. We don't need to respond to what is being created, what's being produced on a creative level. In any storytelling milieu, we basically need to be focusing on storytelling that really, as we've been talking about here in some ways, manifests the haqq, the truth of what we're trying to live according to. So let's see if there are any questions. If anyone has any questions about the initiative as a whole, what we're doing, I know we've had a couple people who've actually submitted some of their content to us, and we do have a process by which we evaluate the stories that are submitted. If you visit www.fictionalfrontiers.com, we have a pretty detailed approach to how we vet content material. We have a new chief creative officer, Noor Yusuf, who is an incredibly talented storyteller in her own right. She is the daughter of Sheikh Asim Yusuf out of the UK. And she's done a brilliant job in putting together a formula by which we evaluate content that's submitted, and then also look at what can be done with the particular stories. And you might be asking the question, what do we do with these stories, and what kinds of stories are we looking for? Well, we're looking for, I guess, two different things. One, we're looking for the seeds of an idea. So if you just have a pitch or an idea that you want to kind of develop further, but you're not necessarily a creator, that's something we'd be more than happy to discuss and explore at a certain level. It might need a little bit more finessing and marinating, but nonetheless, we will be looking at that to explore it further. But more than anything else, we're looking for stories that are medium agnostic, meaning that they're not necessarily for publishing or for television or film. They can be for a variety of different mediums, and we'll help you explore what those might, what mediums might serve those particular projects best. So just visit fictionalfrontiers.com, and we can talk about some of the things, or actually you can see what we're looking to develop, and our team will actually get back to you if you email us and send things in an organized fashion. We try to create a process that would keep things a little bit more smoothly moving forward, inshallah. So we welcome the opportunities there to share what you have with those other people around, not only the Ummah here, but also outside the Ummah who are interested in stories that elevate and entertain simultaneously. So are there any questions? Or I don't see.
We do have a couple of stuff.
Okay, sure.
Talib Razi, I'm sorry if I butchered that name.
Talib Razi, yeah.
He said, Muslim fiction writer here, hope to work with Fictional Frontiers.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. So that's just,
Oh, sure, yes.
So on the website it said internships. So what's the process look like for that?
Okay.
And the opportunities to get involved for somebody who's looking to.
Okay. Someone asked, one of the guests here asked about internships. We are looking to bring on interns, and we have a variety of different areas that we need or welcome assistance in, because one of the things that's really important for me is to actually make sure that this is a collaborative effort. And so many of the industries that we focus on and we work in, the doors are somewhat closed because we are working on very high level content and productions, because we're not looking to just do things on a small scale. We're looking to do things that are going to be on a global scale with respect to not only the stories that are being told, but how the stories are being told. So there are a lot of different moving parts in that mix. So there are positions available and open for social media positions, editorial positions, things on the technical side of things. We're actually planning to relaunch our live stream, inshallah, next month and do a lot more content there. I'll give you a quick update on our schedule in the next couple of weeks. We actually were invited to San Diego Comic-Con next week, which is the largest pop culture event in the world, to moderate a panel on the Fictional Frontiers Initiative and share what this whole effort is all about. And for those of you who are familiar or not maybe familiar with that convention, if you will, it's basically a place where all the industry leaders in genre of pop culture entertainment come to share their projects for the upcoming year. And they've invited us to share our content, and we do have a couple things we are going to be announcing there. I can give you a tease of what's to come. One of the things we are going to be talking about announcing there is the launch of our digital platform, and that's another thing we may need help with, is the monitoring and the processing elements that are involved with that with respect to the platform itself, which will be a subscription-based platform. Every month, anyone who subscribes to our platform will have access to all the content on it. We'll be actually sharing more details about that at the event, but one of the other things that we are going to be talking about in greater detail is a series by Noor Yusuf, our Chief Creative Officer, which is Beyond the Forest, which is it's based on a series of novels she is currently writing. She's written the first 2 novels in the series, and it's focusing on the stories of the Awliyah in many respects. Basically, we are taking, I don't want to say we're taking a cue from Narnia per se. People have compared it to Narnia, but I think that's a bad comparison, but it gives some context. But in essence, it's about 3 young children who visit, one of the cousins is actually visiting 2 other cousins in a place outside England where it's very rural and it's more of a foresty area, excuse me. And when this cousin visits the other 2 cousins, they come across a place where they think a witch is living. Now, the witch is not really a witch. It's just they don't understand that this individual is someone who is Zahid and who's actually dedicated to the deen. And through their interactions with her, they metaphysically are transported to the times of the Awliya through Farasit. So the process of the storytelling or the vehicle by which we're telling these stories is a way for us to revisit those incredible periods of time, but also give a sense of what those individuals were able to accomplish and to share not only with Muslims but non-Muslims the incredible legacies of the Awliya. So that's our first project, and the plan is actually to develop that in a variety of different multimedia platforms, on a variety of different multimedia platforms. So quickly, if there are any other questions, I think Dr. Shadee probably coming back. So do you guys have plans of coming to Dragon Con? That's in Atlanta, right? Dragon Con is more of a cosplay event, but you never know. Next year, inshallah, we're going to be attending a lot of different places. And what's really nice is that we're finding people outside of the Muslim community very interested in what we're doing as well. So depending on the appropriateness of the venue, and as Dr. Shadee mentioned before, we're not going to go to certain locales, but depending on the opportunities and the expectations, we definitely want to share what we're doing at a variety of different places. So we'll see, inshallah. Any other questions quickly? If you get, okay, I don't know if that's for someone else, but yeah, one of the things that's really, really exciting is that we're coming across incredibly dynamic creators in their own right, but tied to that, or I guess you could say honing in on that, they are really, really focused on making sure the stories are consistent with our tradition. And one of the other things that we're going to be doing next year, inshallah, don't want to put the pressure on Dr. Shadee and others, but we're actually hoping to have the Shuyukh, and I know Dr. Shadee talked about the social media side of things, but we're hoping to actually have the Shuyukh on a very high academic level provide the parameters for artists who want to enter these spaces in these industries, what questions they need to ask, what are the limitations, what are the expectations, what are the responsibilities, not only from a creative perspective, but also from a business perspective as well. How do we collaborate with people from outside our community? How should people who are in this space collaborate with one another? Because one of the things that we see in the secular spaces is that it's very much tied to capitalism and this idea of competing against one another. And the Muslim ethos is very different, where we look out for one another. And one quick anecdote. I remember Sheikh Asim Yusuf brought this up, which was very interesting. He said that if you visit the old Ottoman marketplaces, you would find that there were guilds in those marketplaces. And what would happen is that a person would actually want to purchase something from one shopkeeper, and he would find that all the shopkeepers were pretty much selling the same thing. And the understanding was that they would share from a pool, and they had a certain amount that they made for themselves, but they still worked with each other, so they elevated one another, and it wasn't just complete and utter domination or competition amongst each other. And I remember Sheikh Hamza had mentioned this, I guess, a couple months ago, where he said that he had gone to a shop, and someone in that shop, he was trying to purchase something from them, had said, "Listen, don't buy from me, buy from a person 2 stores down, because he's had a rough day today." Subhanallah. So that ethos is what we're trying to embed in the creative process at the highest levels, even when you're talking about multi-million or billion-dollar projects. And so I think that one of the things we hope to have the Shuyukh contribute to, because we definitely need it because of the impact of storytelling, is making sure that we have something that's going to establish the parameters, the ethics of not only the storytelling itself, but the process by which we develop storytelling as a whole. So here are 2 series: Beyond the Forest, and the other one, Clarion. I don't know if you can see that on the screen here. Okay, yeah, there's a series called Clarion, and I guess we can tease that since it's on the site. I'll quickly kind of wrap this up. It's a series. It's a martial arts series that's basically inspired by the martial artists in Indonesia, who are definitely tied to a lot of the schools in Indonesia that have a rich legacy connected to Habib Umar, for example. And so the martial arts stories are actually bringing in, again, the ethical elements that come into martial arts or are part of martial arts from a Muslim's perspective or a Muslim perspective. And we put a little bit more of a fantasy twist on it, because the villains that they're fighting in this case are actually demonic forces who have been actually whose sins manifest physically. So they are actually transformed into monstrosities by the very sins that they're committing. And so that's what they're trying to fight against on a, not only on a, tangible level, but actually on a metaphysical level as well. So again, we're pushing the boundaries of what storytelling can be, but we're actually doing it in a way, inshallah, that's going to embrace the process and method that resonates with a lot of the mainstream content out there. And people were actually really, really excited about it, like I said, not just from our community, but outside the community, because the one thing I think we have neglected, this last point I'll make, is that people outside the Muslim community, they really are drawn to, I should say, science fiction and fantasy. And what I found is that there's a direct connection between that and the unseen world, because that means they're thinking outside of what they're seeing. So they already have an inclination to want to explore those possibilities. And so we're trying to develop stories that will allow them to connect with these questions or these answers. We're actually trying to give them the answers to some extent. But more important than anything else, we feel like if you build it, they will come. Not to borrow a cliche from Field of Dreams, but that's inshallah the plan as a whole. So.
Where will the shows be aired?
The platforms that we're going to be airing the shows are going to be they're going to be in a variety of different places. Inshallah, ultimately, we do want to produce live action animated series, and it will be on a variety of different streaming platforms. Hopefully, it'll be on some of the more North American-centric platforms, but also there are emerging international platforms that a lot of the different regions are developing themselves. So Turkey has their own streaming platform. Latin American countries have their own platforms. So we hope to have the content available in a variety of different platforms in different spaces. And the nice thing about this is that as a whole, what we're seeing is that in the old days, you could see genre entertainment dominated by only a certain number of networks, studios and like, but because of the ubiquity of technology today and everyone, being able to do so much at home, for example, not to say we're going to be working with independent creators on that level, but you can do a lot now that you just could never do before. And a lot of countries are now able to produce content that's comparable, if not superior, to the content we're seeing developed here. Even if you go online and see some of the independent North American filmmakers. I saw a video the other day of this young man who had created this clip of, he was trying to copy Spider-Man, but he literally had filmed himself, I believe, under this tunnel, and he was swinging and climbing. He was swinging underneath the tunnel and climbing on the walls. He did it all himself without any visual effects house. And that's, like I said, a real leveling of the playing field here. So now it's more about the content than how you, develop the content as a whole.
So I just put up some pictures of the cover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Beyond the Forest is at the top there, and the second one is Clarion. It's actually the Muhaqiq is the name, but we had to give it a name that was a little bit more digestible for English-speaking audiences. But both of them are manga series, and the reason we used manga is because with respect to even a lot of the younger students of knowledge, I found that they've enjoyed content that's using that medium, because manga is a medium. Just like Dr. Shadee alluded to earlier with respect to the apps, and I don't want to speak on his behalf. He may push back against that, but I think that it's the utilization of the mediums. It's just like driving a car. The way we're looking at it is that this is a process by which we're conveying or telling this particular story. And in many respects, I feel that there's also the opportunity for us to redefine how that medium should be used. That's one of the ultimate goals. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tawfiq is with him, of course. And we do our best. And I remember, again, a couple weeks back, Dr. Shadee had mentioned that that story, actually, I think it was at the event for Prophetic Living for Sheikh Yasser Fahmi's organization. He made this, he told this story, I think he told it many times at NBIC about making the dua that, if the intent is there, you get the reward of the intent regardless of whether or not you succeed in the intent. So our intent is actually to redefine what pop culture and genre entertainment is across the globe. And if we make it, fine. If we don't, it's not up to us. It's up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I'm just looking to see if there are any other questions. But we'll be sharing more and more as we move along on our Instagram page and on our website. But we wanted to do a slow burn because it was really important for us to make certain that the content reflected who we were and is consistent with our tradition, which is again why we've referenced scholars and all this. Noor Yusuf, wanted to mention one other thing about Noor. In her writing of this series, Beyond the Forest, the stories of the Awliyah, any section that she's written about these particular individuals, she does not move forward in her storytelling until she gets a sign after doing istihara. So, because I had asked her, I said, how long does it take for you to write the different installments in the different books? And she said, well, I don't move ahead. Well, I thought it was just because of the creative process, the art behind it. And she said, no, I don't move ahead until I get a sign after doing istihara that it's okay for me to move ahead, or that I'm okay with this. And she said, I've had to make changes in the storytelling aspects of it because of certain signs she received. And that's the thing we really want to also bring to the mix here, is that whenever you're jumping into this, yes, it's okay. Everyone wants to make a living in these industries, but you can have your cake and eat it too. You need to purify your intentions across the board. And it's at the end of the day, it's not about who has the most toys wins the game. What we're trying to do, and we have a responsibility because we are here in this time, in this place, we have a responsibility to share the haqq. That's what it is, to share the haqq. And there's a way to do it, and there's a way not to do it. And again, I think one other thing that really kind of gave us some clarity, to be honest with you, was Dirilish Ertuğrul, the series on Netflix, which is about the precursors to the Ottoman Empire. Ertuğrul, the father of Osman, who was the founder of the Ottoman Empire. And that series is obviously unapologetically Muslim in its content, or at least the story is, as far as who these individuals are. They don't shy away from their expressions or their lives as Muslims. And what we found is that about 40% of the people, if you go onto Google, for example, and look at the reviews for that show, you'll see that 40% of the people who are watching that show are not Muslim, and they love the content. They've been giving positive reasons. I'm not X, Y, and Z. And then they say, but I embrace and celebrate and really love the sincerity. I love the devotion to elevated character. And I think that there's a connection on the level of the fitrah to so much of this, that draws people in. And, Iman comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it doesn't come from us. And so all we can do is plant the seed. And once we've done that, we've fulfilled our responsibility. And yeah, it's an exciting ride. But an answer to the brother's question again about the internships, we definitely are looking for people who want to contribute in any way, form, or fashion. And the one thing I would also make mention of quickly is that don't think that you cannot contribute to this space, because I believe, from my experience, at least when I have seen, is that people who are creative on any level or in any area, their skill sets are transferable. So even if you don't know how to do certain things in the arts, per se, the fine arts, what have you, don't think that you can't contribute or you can't be a part of this industry. And also, from my experience, with all due respect to colleagues and people who are working on feature films and the like, most of the people working on those productions, their talent is not something that is awe-inspiring or something that should send shivers down your spine, say, listen, I can't compete or I can't be in these areas. If anything, most of the people in our community are thinking about things at such a high level and with such a layer of nuance that they just need to be given the opportunity. So I think that don't feel like you can't do what they're doing. I think we can actually do what they're doing and do it at a higher level in so many different ways. They just need to be given the chance, inshallah, and hopefully we'll be able to do that. So, inshallah. So, I don't know if you want to take over. Yeah, jazakallah here. Assalamu alaikum.
So this is another thing where it's something Allah created, in the sense, a situation where people they're watching stuff. There's no changing that, right? So you moderate it, put it in what's useful, put it what's in halal, and do it excellently. And if you look at the best stories, the best movies, the most successful brands of, or whatever they're called, right? Trilogies, whatever you want. What do they call them? Yeah, those they're just the best story, and it has nothing to do with the lewdness, nothing to do with the nonsense that they put in to get people to watch. It's just the best story. All right, so
there's one question I definitely wanted to answer.
Yeah, sure.
If I could. It says, as part of your decision, I think it was Namaz, as part of your decision to combat the Islamic phobic novelists, literary artists such as Rushdie and I want to address that.
Yeah.
I would say no, because I think, again, echoing something you said a couple weeks back,
Mm-hmm.
I think we as Muslims, we're not reactionaries. I think that by its nature already gives a level of validity to what has already been created and produced by another person.
Yeah.
We don't respond to other people.
Yeah.
We have people respond to us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what we have and what we are doing is not a response to what others are doing. It's because we have a responsibility to share who we are and what we have.
Yeah.
Which is very different from responding to what others say or do or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're on the defensive. We are not on the defensive. We're on the offensive here in a way that's not aggressive by any nature, or any way, I should say. It is a way for us to fulfill our responsibility. So
Yeah.
it's not a response to them. It's actually a responsibility to our Creator.
Mm-hmm. You don't stay in the negative and the defensive. When you're in the defensive, you've already lost. You've already lost when you're in the defensive. You got to always be in the offensive of putting out what you believe in, which doesn't mean that you never state what you're against, because the Shahada teaches us this, right? The Shahada says that we are in a constant negation of the evil. And it's one of Shaytan's tricks of stay optimistic and just always, which you never say anything is bad. And you never say anyone is wrong. And you never say anything is not correct. That's also misguided. But where is the location of that? That should be secondary to what you're pushing off, right? It may be primary in what's necessary. So it's necessary to remove najasa before praying. It's necessary to disbelieve in idols before believing in Allah. So in the logical order of things, but in a culture's general ethos, it's got to be positive. It's one of the biggest differences between the Shia ethos and the Sunni ethos, which is not to poke and start a fight with the Shia in the month of Muharram, but the ethos is very different. One ethos is always negative. The central point is a negativity. Whereas you go to Egypt in Muharram for decades now, centuries. What do they call it? They don't not in Muharram. I don't think it's in Muharram. They actually celebrate the birth of Hussein. Right? I don't know if they do it in Muharram or when do they do it, but if you go to the masjid there, Hussein, they have celebrations. They're celebrating the achievement of what he did, not being negative. Curse upon Muawiyah, curse upon Yazid, curse upon the Umayyads, curse upon, and then it extends to the Sahabi, Sayyidina Muawiyah, and it extends into where we're entering into serious innovation and misguidance. According to the majority narration, Hussein was born in Sha'ban. So go to Mawlid al-Hussein in Egypt. See when they do it. Okay. Mawlid al-Hussein in Egypt. They do it for a month. But what's the ethos? Happiness. He's in Jannah. He's Sayyid Shabab al-Jannah. So yes, in his journey, there was that one terrible period of time. But the overall, he succeeded, right? He succeeded. He is Sayyid Shabab al-Jannah. Okay. Every year, hordes of Egyptians, this is hordes of Egyptians head to Al-Hussein Mosque in Al-Azhar district to celebrate the Mawlid birthday of Al-Hussein ibn Ali ibn Abi Talib. This year, the Mawlid came in the same day as Western Christmas. Al-Hussein has a great significance to the Muslims especially. Okay, blah, blah, blah. The mosque was built in 1154. Okay. His shrine is regularly visited. Okay. 15 million people a year. Festivities in Old Cairo have a fair-like nature. Okay. All right. Keep going down. Scroll. No, it doesn't mention anything. Well, what's it? Go up? Go up again? Up. See the date of the article.
2019.
Okay, so it doesn't really say any Hijri date, but of when they do it. Thousands, it says here, celebrating. Now, we can discuss how they celebrate it, right? And sometimes the Egyptians go a bit crazy, right? And they have one time, I'm not even kidding you, a full band in the mihrab. A band. Flutes, drums, set up a stage in front of the mihrab. You're entering into serious levels of, I would say, this is not what was intended. What's intended is ihya dhikr. Ihya dhikra of so-and-so. The dhikra meaning the commemoration or the remembrance of, what do we learn from this? What kind of ibadat are we going to revive? Recitation of Quran, sadaqat, those usual things, right? That's all fine and good, but once it goes crazy like that, and then guess what happens? Nobody says anything, so Allah's going to create wahhabis for you, right? So we got to fix ourselves, but we got to do things right. So the general ethos of the Ahl Sunnah is happiness in everything, not grief and sadness. All right, couple questions we have time to take right now. Madik BN says, we mentioned mingling the good and bad at the beginning. Yes, this is one of the tricks of Shaytan. After talking about how we want to spend our time learning the deen, I was a bit confused. Yes, okay. So Shaytan, when he cannot stop somebody, right? When he cannot stop somebody from doing the good, he will try to make them mix the good and the bad. Such that, for example, they may have arrogance and wearing the garments of the sunnah. That's good. Having a big beard and looking down on it, mixed together. Okay? Or studying aqidah, arguing with people. Studying fiqh, making people's lives miserable. Okay? Because that's the part where things could be mixed, good and bad. That's the problem. We do a quick AF again. As soon as I got up, it refocused to the mic. We good? Yeah. How did you know that? All right. What else we got here? Open QA. Not much from Instagram so far. Question from the Mohas. Isn't there a risk of diluting the deen like that of the American show Rami? How do we avoid this? Well, we should just look at by rulings. Rami's not diluting the deen. It's directly soiling. It's a direct that's pouring defecation in the water. Diluting is pouring water in the milk. No, this guy vomited in the milk. Like with his show. Just straight up muharramat, prohibitions, straight up. So okay. Which one? Oh man, yeah. I mean, the guy's got filth in the thing, but that's what they want him to put. They want him to put filth. Mojo Khan. The origins of turuq. Turuq are madhahib of akhlaq and madhahib of tahqiq al-ubudiyya lillah. Tahqiq al-ubudiyya lillah is to optimize, perfect, actualize our servitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So how do we do that? We need a living example. And hence, the turuq have chains of transmission back to the Sahaba, where they passed down how to actually live as a slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our times. As we said earlier, the greatest guidance is in the past, but the greatest impact is in the present. The people of the present will change you right away. They don't have the best rulings, the best guidance is with the people of the past. They're pure. But so we need this immediate living right in front of us, flesh and blood, right in front of us, examples. Because we have in our times challenges that didn't exist back then. I can't know what is a good amount, whether to study or to go to college or study deen. I can't get that answered from Abdul Qadir al-Jailani. Can't get that answered from the Sahaba. Get that answer from the shuyukh that are alive today. So I can't know how much, should I socialize versus should I be in solitude for dhikr? That question is not going to be answered by the people of the past. It's going to be answered by the people of today. Hence the dire need and the necessity of being with the people of the present. And so when someone becomes an adept at this, they've done it so much, they've been trained, and now they're training others, they become a sheikh. Sheikh don't want to waste his time. Some shuyukh, they don't waste their time. You come to me, you don't go to somebody else. That's the idea of a bay'ah. It's not that you can never be around somebody else, but your general direction. If I'm sitting there and teaching you, and then all of a sudden you say, I'm going to go to I read with somebody else, you're wasting time. Because this is a very intimate relationship. Okay? It's not just reading a book with them. It's guiding you along your spiritual development. Okay? For you then to, waste that time. That's why they established this concept. And it's a deal. The bay'ah is a legal deal. I will be there for you. Listen to me. That's the trade-off. I'll be there for you. I'll make my time for you. You listen to me. Don't waste my time. And that's only one perspective of the bay'ah. There are many other perspectives, but that's the baseline legal perspective of why they did that. Fatima ibn Abdurrahman says, please tell us on the du'as that are answered on Wednesday between Dhuhr and Asr. I never heard of that until yesterday. Why specifically on Wednesday between Dhuhr and Asr? The Prophet ﷺ was at the Battle of Al-Khandaq, and around 1 month had passed, and the Muslims had been under siege for 1 month, and they were getting exhausted, and the supplies were running thin, and they had been away from their homes at the front of the city for 1 month, and the Sahaba were feeling the hardship. So the Messenger ﷺ began to make dua for a relief from this hardship. Okay. And the Sahabi, Jabir ibn Abdullah, who was like the attendant to the Prophet ﷺ at that time, he saw the Prophet, peace be upon him, come out of his tent, or be in his tent, which was on a high area, so he could see the whole situation. And he made dua all day on Monday. Just like pray, sit for dua. Eat, sit for dua. Pray again, sit for dua. Tend to affairs, sit for dua. Did that on Monday. Did that on Tuesday. On Wednesday, he began doing that too. And on Wednesday, between Dhuhr and Asr, he received this answer from Allah. That Allah Ta'ala will answer him. That the faraj will come. And shortly thereafter, a great wind came and blew away all the tents of the pagans, and they became miserable, and it rained on them, and they lost their desire to continue, so they began to scatter and leave. Jabir ibn Abdullah, this Sahabi, he then said, I knew at that point that Wednesday between Dhuhr and Asr is a special time, because any time that something happens once to the Prophet, peace be upon him, that time and place becomes sacred. So the place, and in Medina you can go there. There's a little masjid built there. But if you can't go to that place, we observe the time. There's time and place. So the time is Wednesday. Any time between Dhuhr and Asr, we never know when it can change. Just like the last third of the night. It's not the whole last third of the night. There's a window opens up. When, you don't know. So Wednesday between Dhuhr and Asr, there is a time of ijabah. Because Allah gave that once to the Prophet ﷺ, he doesn't take it back. And that's the definition of Al-Kareem. When he gives, he doesn't take something back. It's not the attribute of generosity to give a gift and take it back. So the Prophet ﷺ, the Jabir ibn Abdullah, the companion, said, anytime that I had an issue and I have a matter that's burdening me, I sit between Dhuhr and Asr on Wednesday, do some ibadah, recite some Quran, and make dua. And he said, always I get a signal that my dua, a sign of some sort, some indicator from Allah Ta'ala that the dua has been answered. So that's why we take advantage of that time and that dua. North Korean says, should I read the Quran every day, even if it's the same surah over and over? Yes, that's a great way of doing hifth. Okay. Let's say I want to memorize a surah of Quran, but I'm weak, I don't have time. Okay. How about every morning recite it? Every morning, recite that surah. Oh, it's long. Recite 1 page of it. I can't. Recite half a page of it. Recite the half a page twice. Guarantee you by the end of the month you memorized it. Now start praying with it now. See, you can memorize the Quran with a lot of Quran with very little effort by observing this methodology. Every morning you wake up, first thing you do is you recite that half page once or twice. You start praying with it. By the way, you're allowed to mark it out in pencil or in pen in the Quran, Mushaf. You can mark it out. You can put a line, right? And treat that like, if every surah of the Quran was the size of, let's say, al-duha, wal-duha wal-layli idha saja, we'd all be hafadh. But wait a second, we can do this. All you have to do is break up every surah with a line. You're not saying that it's a new surah, but you're putting, for my hifth, this is my section, and it's the 5 ayahs here, 7 ayahs there. Every page, break it up into 2 or 3 parts. And then obsessively read that same part. Don't read a second one. Read that one. And number it. So let's say it's Surah At-Tahrim, and you break it up into 4 parts. Tahrim 1, Tahrim 2, Tahrim 3, Tahrim 4. So in your mind, you know what it is, right? And every morning or anytime you recite Quran, instead of reciting 5 pages, recite Tahrim 1 10 times, which equivalent to 5 pages, right? Hifth is better than khatm. Always. Because hifth allows you to memorize, to recite without the mushaf. And in salah. Khatm doesn't, because you don't remember anything. You'll remember selected verses here and there. or how to continue a verse. Like most adult Muslims who read the Quran a lot, you can recite an ayah, he'll finish it for you, right? But he won't be able to recite a passage. So that's a far superior way of living with the Quran. And then you just take it systematically. And you start praying with it. That's the key. All right, Amra Bintu says that she has questions. All right, let's see. Ain. Where are these questions? It's Instagram. I opened it late. I didn't see it. So can you scroll up? We're looking for the questions, sister. Yes, young man.
So I was going to ask, what are some resources for learning the seerah, and what's the best way to go about
Seerah?
learning the seerah?
Buy every book of seerah you can get from a reliable source and read them all, because not every one of them will, none of them will be complete, and it'll patch together like the mutun. Like you're studying Ashmawiyah, then you study Akhdari, then you study Ibn Ashid, then you study Izziyah. 70-80% of it's the same, which cements you in that. You become like, this is like bread and butter, but each one will add a little bit more here and there. So seerah, the best methodology, if you're ambitious, any seerah book you get, you buy it. There may be a chapter or an incident in the seerah that is discussed better in one book than another book. Overall, the other book's better, but on this subject, it's better. There may be a writing style is better in one, but the sourcing is better than another. One has footnotes for everything. The other doesn't have the footnotes, but it flows a lot nicer. One of them is very good for the advanced. One's good for the beginner. So likewise for playlists of seerah. Listen to everybody's seerah. Okay, everyone who is within a reliable sunnah, right? Ahl sunnah. Listen to them. Some people may have better storytelling skills, some better analytical skills, right? So that should be our methodology in seerah. And seerah doesn't need ijazah. Just need to know the source is sound. Then you read. With regards to memorizing and reciting the portion in your salah, how can you know that you're not making a mistake? So you listen. If you can possibly have a teacher to give a tasmiyah to, then you know that you haven't made a mistake. But after a certain while, if you know your tajweed, you know the Quran in general, you won't need that, right? You listen to it, you recite it. That's if someone has, for example, I've been to tajweed classes, right? I'm experienced now in that. I know how to recite the Quran, and I can listen to it. But if you're a beginner, you will need someone to bounce it off of. Go to anybody who knows how to read the Quran, open the Mushaf, or if they're a hafid, you recite to them. So, and you only need to do that a couple times until you become good at reciting. And you know exactly how the book should be recited.
I can find the two questions that the sister was talking about. I think she sent it like either a long time ago or...
Yeah, we can't see it, sister. We can't see it.
You can resend it.
Yeah, resend it. Am I right? Says, I have broken pieces of Islamic art. How do I dispose of it? You cut it up, or you would break it such that no words could be deciphered, and then you could dispose of it. That's how you would do it. I'm teaching a seerah class and thinking of showing the movie The Message with a disclaimer that the actors are not, what they... what about the movie? I've seen pious people and people of knowledge show the movie. I don't believe in displaying Sahaba though, because it's a slippery slope, right? But at least they refrained from. But also, okay, they refrained from the Khulafa. But who's judging? I guess the Khulafa, they're a special. The Prophet and the 4 Khalifas are not shown. But what about the 10 guaranteed paradise? What about Bilal? He was guaranteed paradise. He's not from the 10. The 10 was in one incident. The Prophet, Sayyidina Jibreel, said the first 10 people to enter, give them the bushra of paradise. Right? And then they came Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali, Sa'ad, Sa'id, Talha, Zubair, Abdurrahman ibn Auf, Abi Ubaidah. 10. We said them all? بكر عمر عثمان وعلي سعد وسعيد طلحة وزبير عبد الرحمن بن عوف وأبي عبيدة بن الجراح. They all entered, one after the other, and Sayyidina Jibreel said, O Muhammad, the first 10 to come in, you give them Bushra paradise. That's why they're called the 10. But are they the only? No. Bilal ibn Rabah was guaranteed paradise. Hassan and Hussein were guaranteed paradise. Hamza was guaranteed paradise. The Prophet ﷺ said that all the shuhada, those shuhada that the Prophet prayed upon. So there are many. So why would we display Hamza and Bilal but not others? So I'm not a fan of that personally because it's a slippery slope. Why? There are so many other incidents that happen in Islamic history you could make a movie out of. But Allah, I can't say there's no benefit in either.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%. I think, obviously, from a scholar perspective, that you should avoid, I think, anything that shows the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam or any of the Sahaba.
Yeah.
But there is a way around that, and that's one of the things that Aristotle did that I thought was very effective because I'll give you an example. The Munafiqun in the Quran. You read about them, you understand them intellectually, but honestly, I really gained a deeper appreciation of what a munafiq was by watching.
By seeing it.
By seeing it.
In display.
So So you can use other stories. I would say what would be probably the best course is like Dr. Shadee said, take the books, the texts, process the stories, and then as Muslim storytellers, we tell stories which give you an archetypal example, a concrete example, so you can actually see what that really means. What is a munafiq in real life?
And how they enrage a person because you see them causing the trouble, but you can't actually pinpoint the crime. That's why they enrage you, the munafiq, like the snake. You know they're causing trouble, but you got nothing on them. It drives you crazy. It drives law enforcement crazy, these guys who are like this. Law enforcement, when they know you're the source of all the trouble, but you did it in such a crafty way that
They have no proof on you.
They got no proof.
But they know you did it.
Yeah, I know you did it. Yeah, the mafia might kill you anyway, just by suspicion. And that's why the mafia, there's more law and order where the mafia exists, but there's systematized oppression too. But anyway, let's get to this question here. She says, no, I mean, when you're reciting the memorized portion in your salah, how do you know you're making a mistake? In any case, it's the same for anybody. So you're going to try to recite it to yourself and compare before that so many times, right? Do hifd of it so many times that you feel confident that I know it well. Ask somebody to hear it, and if 3-4 times you recited it without mistakes, you can pray with it. And it doesn't break your salah to make a mistake in the tilawah. If it no longer sounds like Arabic, that degree of error, egregious error, then the salah is invalidated. And the ulama said other things. So there's different parameters on that, but that's one of them, and that's in I can't remember. I recall the book. It's a book compiling many shuruhats of Khalil. All right, al-Muslimu akhul Muslim. Okay, first before this one, because it's a longer one. A shorter question is, what does it mean? The saying "Al-dhikru manshurul wilaya." It means that. What is a manshur? It's an ad, like a little piece of paper that says there's a barbecue on 345 Washington Street. Simple, right? You take it, you go right away. When you get those ads, those little leaflets, what are they? They're simple and they're direct. They give you direct access to the benefit. So, al-dhikr manshur al-wilaya means that when you become a person of dhikr, it's as if you've been given a little leaflet telling you where wilaya is. Like, it's the fast route, it's the left lane, it's the direct route. Once a person has become a lover of dhikr, that they are on the path to wilaya. Eventually they'll get there, inshallah ta'ala. Al-Muslimu akhul Muslim la yakhunuhu wa la yakdhibuhu. This is a big hadith. Wa la yakhdhuluhu. Kullu al-Muslimi al-Muslimi haram. Muslim is sacred. His reputation, his wealth, his blood. Okay? Taqwa is here. It's enough evil for a person to hate your Muslim brother. Okay? The Muslim is the brother of the Muslim. He should not betray him, lie about him, humiliate him. That's the meaning of that hadith. It's one of the most encompassing hadiths on matters of akhlaq between Muslims. Okay? Couple more, and then we are off for the day, and we'll come back on Monday, inshallah. Friend of mine is unsure if she should marry a brother who asked for her hand because he's a Barelvi. Let me just put it this way. In a marriage, you got to agree on the deen. If you're both into the deen. If you're both nominal in the deen, you have a risk. What happens if one of you becomes interested in deen, right? So you really should be on the same wavelength. And if you have positions and he has positions, very strong positions that are opposed, it may cause problems. But really, you don't want to turn away potential good people over fine points of theology unless they're fanatics. If a fanatic, you can't get along with a fanatic, not because of their deen, because of their personality. The fanatic is a fanatic in everything, right? Fanaticism and reasonableness are not isolated. Like, you never find a guy, he's a very reasonable guy, but in the deen, he's a crazy fanatic. No, he'll be a crazy fanatic in everything, right? So that fanaticism is no good in life. So I wouldn't like somebody to be like, marriage is, it's so precious these days. People have trouble getting married, right? So shouldn't just be shutting someone off because of a madhab which within Ahl Sunnah. See if you could try to get along, or not just get along, bring up the points and find the middle ground. And that's not the methodology in the deen of you bring your point, you bring my point, we'll bring the middle ground. That's not the methodology. Usul, there's right and wrong based upon the sources. So bring up the mas'ala and find what is true and what is false. Now, there is fanaticism even in that. Like, you bring something true, okay, so that Aqidat Ahl Sunnah is true. Now, where's the fanaticism? Anybody who does not espouse and declare their Ash'arism and Maturidism or Hanbalism is a mubtada, and we're going after him and we're going to tear them down. That's where, yes, you're true, but you're a fanatic now. How you apply this is fanaticism. So the way I like it, the best thing I heard is that everyone's innocent until they utter something that's not right. A person is not guilty because they like somebody, or they dress that way, or they have shuyukh of that. You're not guilty until you express and utter the innovation with your own mouth and support it. Okay, so and Allah's best, your situation is a specific matter. I'm giving you just general points. Yep.
Would you have like a distinction though in like fiqh stuff? So like, let's say you're Hanafi and like she's a taliba and she's like Shafii, let's say. Yeah. Obviously, we don't believe in like, even if you touch a woman with shahwa, it's not gonna break my wudu. But then for her, she has an approach to that. So like with fiqh stuff, like the madhahib.
Okay.
Would you apply that to that as well? Or?
Great question. Madhahib. Husband's got one madhab, wife has got another madhab. This is how it works. When husband and wife are together, if it's a matter that is mutual, such as the touching that breaks wudu, right? It's a mutual thing. It's a mas'ala that is based upon two people. You're on the husband's madhab.
Really?
He's the leader of the house. You're in my kingdom right here. All right, witr. We don't pray witr together. Do your thing. All right, children. Girls are on the mother's madhab, boys are on the father's madhab. That's the best I've seen. So in a mutual mas'ala, like witr is not mutual. You pray witr your way, I pray witr my way. We're not doing it together, right? But something that must be done together, it's on the husband's madhab. Okay? Like the mas'ala of wudu. She's Shafi'i. I'm touching you, okay? She's Shafi'i, and no. On this, no. Okay, you make the wudu. I'm not making the wudu. So there's not even an issue. But I'm touching. I'm not hesitating. You can't come and tell me, let's sit together and have ice cream and watch something on Netflix, but we'll put a wall here. Or I'll wear a glove. No. So you got to have a marriage soon enough. Okay. What's a specific dua for clarity? Allahumma arina al-haqqa haqqan warzuqna ittiba'a wa arina al-batila batilan warzuqna ijtinaba. And by the way, the hadith I had cited earlier about commanding right is لَتَأْمُرُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَلَتَنْهَوُنَّ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ أَوْ لَيُسَلِّطَنَّ اللَّهُ عَلَيْكُمْ شِرَارَكُمْ وَلَا يَسْمَعُ دُعَاءَ خِيَارِكُمْ. The meaning is, you shall command the right and forbid the wrong. Or Allah Ta'ala will put over you the worst of you, and He will not answer the dua of the best of you. So if you find yourself being oppressed, being messed up, someone's abusing you, and your dua is not being answered, it's because right was not commanded and wrong was not forbidden. That's the result. How do we address the shubuhat spewed by the liberal teachers in the classrooms? So sister goes to school, brother goes to school, Muslim students, and they're now some nonsense, some kufr is being uttered in the class. How does she handle it? Well, it's a very tough situation, and there are specialist organizations like the Coalition for Virtue or Coalition of Virtue that they're designing content for how students and parents to handle that. I don't have that off the top of my head because there's so many different things that a teacher can say. But look for the Coalition of Virtue. They have that. They have ways to handle that, talking points. Tips on how to love the Quran. Listen to it as much as you can. Recite it as much as you can. The more someone recites the Quran, the more they love it. How can I respond to my friend who knows to trust Allah and it'll get easier to be patient, but responds, what do you do when you've been patient over again and no changes happen? I have a friend who smokes and he says that smoking isn't haram. I know that's not true, but what proof is there? The whole point of patience is that you never say, I've been patient enough. Okay? Patience is the opposite of that. So, yeah, sometimes you have to be patient for a calamity for 15 years. It happens. And you just have to stop. Once you quit, you can't call yourself patient. To be patient means you reach the end. And you can bide this person's time by distracting them from their tribulation is one of the best things. Someone's got a tribulation, distract them from the tribulation. And that's one of the things where al-la'ib wal-lahu becomes permitted, becomes good. Playing and so-called like wasting of time, it becomes actually permitted when you're taking somebody away from focusing on their tribulation. You can't always focus on, have a tribulation and say, okay, let's do something positive. They're so broken and messed up. You need to take them to something that is just halal and fun away from their tribulation. It's easier. It goes down easier, helps take their mind off. So that's something where it is acceptable, because you can't always expect people who are in a traumatic situation to say, okay, let's go to the masjid. Their mind is not for this, right? Their mind's not ready for this. Their mind is, they're shattered. They're emotionally just messed up. I can't talk like I have a lot of experience in that, but that's what I do know. And you could ask people who are in the counseling world for that. By the way, we might open up a life coaching and counseling company. We might open one up because a lot of people need it. And what I won't be doing it myself, but my friends will be doing it, and I'll be guiding them on it. But it's the general life stuff. People just don't know how to do general life anymore, right? I don't know what the dads are up to. Like the regular general living, they don't know how to do it. Why should you ask for a good ending? I understand that it signals potentially having a good stay in the hereafter. What else? The good end is the most important. The most important time of your life is how you die. More important than anything else. There's a thunderstorm happening here. Should I make any dua that I want? Yes, you can. But the dua that is accepted is more in the rain. The thunder, it should be istighfar. When there's scary thunder and lightning, it's not a time of dua, it's a time of istighfar. That is, if it's scary, it's like shocking everybody. The Prophet ﷺ used to make istighfar at that time for sins rather than dua. If it's just general rain, then it's dua. Where do we have the Thursday night mawlids? Good question. I'm going to ask where they put them up. If we ever recorded them. I can't even remember if they recorded them. All right, we have to stop. Unfortunately, a lot of questions we didn't get to, but it is now 3:15 and time is running out. We have to go, unfortunately. And with that, we will close off with our ending dua. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta. نستغفرك ونتوب إليك والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept from all of us. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us and protect us, forgive our sins, and not punish us if we are penitent for our sins. We ask Allah ta'ala not to punish us when we are penitent for our wrongdoings, seeking His istighfar, making istighfar, seeking His forgiveness, and trying to improve and stay away from sins. We ask Allah ta'ala for sitr and afwa and afiyah and maghfirah and ikram and rahmah. وصلى الله وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Kalbe şiir